Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get started with today's story. There was something almost poetic about the way the city lights glittered against the dark sky. But for someone like Liam Parker, a millionaire who'd made his fortune in tech, the bright lights of New York didn't bring the warmth they promised. Instead, they reminded him of the emptiness that had taken root in his life. At 34, Liam had everything. A penthouse with sweeping views of the skyline. A booming business that had started from the ground up. Yet, despite all the success, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. He had wealth, yes, but no one to share it with. His friends were more like business partners, his relationships fleeting, and his family distant. It wasn't that he was incapable of love. He'd loved before, but it had always been complicated. People saw his money first, and he never knew if anyone loved him for who he truly was. He longed for something more, something real. But that was the problem with his life. It had all been a carefully constructed illusion. And so, when he moved into his new apartment, he didn't expect much, just another place to sleep, another place to live. He was wrong. The day Liam moved in was a chaotic one. His new building, a sleek modern complex on the edge of Manhattan, seemed to promise peace and solitude. But when he arrived, the elevator was broken, and the corridors echoed with the sound of movers and contractors. He was tired, drained from weeks of dealing with work issues, and he just wanted to get inside, drop his bags, and forget about the world. But there was one small thing he hadn't counted on. He'd taken the wrong turn on the way to his apartment. Instead of going to 23B, he accidentally entered the apartment next door, 23A. When he opened the door, the last thing he expected to see was a woman in the middle of unpacking boxes, humming softly to herself as she placed a vase on a shelf. Sorry, Liam said, frozen in place. The woman, startled by his sudden appearance, turned quickly. She was in her late 20s, with disheveled hair pulled into a messy bun and a look of surprise in her wide eyes. She was dressed casually, wearing a loose sweater and jeans, far from the polished appearance Liam was used to in his world of business and luxury. She blinked, then looked at him in confusion. "Who are you?" I'm sorry, I think I took a wrong turn," Liam said, still standing awkwardly in the doorway. "I live next door, in 23B. I was just trying to get to my place." She smiled lightly, as if she found the whole situation amusing. "I guess we're neighbors, then." "Seems so," Liam said, his voice almost distant. He stepped back, about to apologize and leave, but then something strange happened. He didn't want to leave. There was something about the way she moved around the room, something calming and unpretentious, that caught his attention. "I'm Emma," she said, extending a hand. "Liam," he replied, shaking her hand briefly. "I'm still unpacking," she said, gesturing to the boxes around the apartment. "It's a bit of a mess, but feel free to come by and say hi when you're settled." "Thanks," Liam said, his mind still racing from the oddity of the situation. I'll take you up on that." And with that, he left, but not without the nagging feeling that something had shifted, something that wasn't supposed to happen. As Liam finally made his way into his actual apartment, he felt the weight of his own solitude. Here he was, in a new place, with no one to share it with. He'd made a mistake by walking into the wrong apartment. But what if that mistake wasn't so bad after all? What if the woman he'd just met was exactly what he needed? The thought gnawed at him as he unpacked, an unfamiliar sensation that seemed to stir something deep inside him. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of something neither of them had planned, but both of them might desperately need. The next few days passed in a blur for Liam. His life, which had once been so neatly compartmentalized, seemed to be spiraling into something new, something he hadn't expected. The incident with Emma kept replaying in his mind, the way she had smiled so easily at him despite the awkwardness, the warmth in her eyes, the way she had made him feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. Real. He didn't know what it was about her, but there was something about Emma that seemed to soften the walls he'd built around himself. It was a strange feeling, and it unsettled him. He was a man who prided himself on control. He didn't let anyone get too close, didn't let himself feel too much. But with Emma, it was different. A few days later, he found himself thinking about her again. He had told himself it was just a mix-up, an accident, nothing more. But he had to admit to himself that there was something pulling him to her. Something that had nothing to do with her apartment, her boxes, or even the confusion of their first meeting. It was a Friday evening when he decided to take the first step. He had finished a long week of back-to-back meetings and project reviews, his mind exhausted from the never-ending pressure of work. Yet, as he sat in his penthouse, staring out at the city lights, a thought lingered in the back of his mind. Without thinking too much about it, he grabbed his jacket, checked his phone, and walked out the door. He wasn't sure what he was hoping for, but he felt a pull to find Emma again. Maybe just for a coffee, maybe for a conversation. He didn't know. As he entered the building, he glanced at the directory on the wall and took a deep breath before pressing the button for the elevator. His heart beat faster than usual as the elevator slowly ascended. When the door opened, he stepped out and walked down the hallway. He paused in front of apartment 23A, the same door he had accidentally walked through just days earlier. His hand hovered over the doorbell, and he hesitated for a moment, feeling oddly nervous. He wasn't sure why. Maybe it was because he wasn't used to this kind of vulnerability, or maybe it was because he knew that walking through that door would be the beginning of something new. He rang the bell. Emma opened the door a few moments later, looking just as she had before, casual, warm, and unassuming. But this time, there was something different about the way she looked at him. "Liam," she said, her voice soft, but with an edge of curiosity. "What are you doing here?" I wanted to apologize," Liam began, his voice low. "I know I'm probably catching you off guard, but I wanted to make up for the awkward first meeting. I figured, maybe we could grab a coffee." Emma smiled, that same easy smile that had caught him off guard before. "Sure," she said. "Come on in." Liam stepped inside, suddenly feeling like a stranger in a place that, just a few moments ago, felt completely unfamiliar. The apartment was cozy, lived in. The kind of place where someone could make memories. He had never been someone who spent much time thinking about what home meant, but something about Emma's space made him want to believe in the idea of it. They sat down at her small kitchen table, and for the first time in days, Liam felt his shoulders relax. The conversation flowed effortlessly, no pressure, no expectations. They talked about everything and nothing. Their favorite coffee spots in the city, the books they had been reading, the crazy things that had happened at work. Emma's laugh was genuine, and it was impossible not to be drawn to it. There was a sense of ease between them that Liam had not expected. "So, how's the apartment coming along?" Liam asked, trying to keep the conversation light. "It's getting there," Emma said, stirring her coffee. "Unpacking takes longer than I remember, but I'm almost done. I guess I'll just have to stop by again to help with the heavy lifting," Liam joked, feeling a smile tug at the corners of his mouth. Emma's eyes sparkled with amusement. "You don't have to do that. But you can stop by any time, if you need anything." Liam nodded, the feeling of connection growing stronger. He wasn't sure what was happening, but there was something undeniably real about the way Emma made him feel. Something that wasn't about money, success, or appearances. It was something deeper, more genuine. He realized that, in all the years he'd spent working and building his empire, he had never allowed himself to truly connect with anyone. And now, in the presence of someone like Emma, he felt like he was finally getting a glimpse of what he had been missing all along. As the evening wore on, the conversation slowed, and there was a comfortable silence between them. It was the kind of silence that felt natural, not forced. It was in that moment, with the warmth of the coffee cup in his hands and the quiet hum of the city outside, that Liam realized something. He didn't want to just be the guy who lived next door. He wanted to be the guy who mattered to her. When he finally stood to leave, Emma walked him to the door. They exchanged a brief smile, and Liam felt something stir in his chest, a feeling that had been absent for too long. "Thanks for the coffee," he said, standing in the doorway. "I'll see you soon." "Anytime," she replied, her voice warm. And with that, Liam stepped out into the hallway, his mind racing with thoughts of Emma. He wasn't sure where this would go, or if anything would even come of it. But for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of hope. A hope that perhaps, just maybe, this mistake of walking into the wrong apartment was exactly what he needed. The days that followed were strange for Liam. He found himself thinking about Emma more than he ever expected. Every time he saw her in the hallway or crossed paths with her in the building, his heart would do a little flip. It was confusing. He was a man who had built a life on control, who had never let his emotions dictate his decisions. But with Emma, he couldn't help it. There was something about her, a warmth, a sincerity, that made him want to take risks, to do things he never would have considered before. It had been a week since their coffee date, and Liam couldn't get her out of his head. He'd told himself it was just a passing fascination, something that would fade with time. But every time he tried to focus on work or retreat into his world of business, Emma's smile would drift into his thoughts, making everything else seem less important. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Liam found himself staring out of his penthouse window, the city lights below him blurring into a sea of color. He should have been focused on his next big deal, preparing for his presentation the next morning. But instead, he was thinking about Emma, her laugh, her kindness, the way she made him feel like he mattered for the first time in a long while. It was then that Liam realized something. He wasn't just interested in her as a neighbor or a passing acquaintance. He wanted more. He wanted to get to know her better, to spend more time with her, to see where this feeling might lead. He couldn't ignore the pull any longer. The next day, Liam decided to take the plunge. He wasn't sure what would come of it, but he knew he had to try. He grabbed his jacket and walked down the hall to her apartment. His heart raced as he approached the door to 23A. This time, he wasn't just making a casual visit. This was different. He rang the doorbell. A moment later, Emma opened the door, and the warmth of her presence washed over him. "Liam," she said with a smile. "What's up?" "I wanted to ask if you'd like to have dinner with me tonight," Liam said, his voice a little more nervous than he intended. "I thought maybe we could, well, spend some more time together. Get to know each other better." Emma's eyes softened, and she looked at him for a moment before nodding. "Sure," she said. "I'd like that." Liam felt a wave of relief wash over him. He wasn't sure why he'd been so nervous. It wasn't like this was a huge deal, just two people getting to know each other. But it felt like more than that to him. They decided on a small Italian restaurant down the street. It wasn't fancy, but it had a cozy atmosphere that seemed perfect for the kind of evening they were going to have. Over dinner, they talked about their lives, their dreams, and the little things that made them who they were. Emma spoke openly about her love for art and her dreams of one day opening her own gallery. Liam found himself listening more than speaking, fascinated by her passion and the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her work. "So what about you?" Emma asked, leaning forward a little. "What's your story?" Liam paused, the question catching him off guard. He wasn't used to being so open about himself. But with Emma, it felt different. "I guess my story is pretty straightforward," Liam said. "I built my company from the ground up, spent a lot of time in meetings and making deals. I don't know. I never really thought about anything else. But lately, I've been thinking about what I really want." Emma nodded, her expression thoughtful. "And what is it that you really want?" Liam hesitated, not sure how to answer. But as he looked at Emma, something inside him clicked. "I think what I want is more than just success. I want to find something real, something that feels right, you know." Emma's smile was soft, almost knowing. "I get that," she said quietly. "Sometimes, we forget what really matters." The conversation flowed easily after that, with both of them sharing more about their pasts and their hopes for the future. By the time they finished dinner, Liam felt a connection with her that was deeper than he'd expected. As they walked back to the building, Liam couldn't help but feel like something was shifting. He wasn't sure where this was going, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was on the right path. "Thanks for tonight," Liam said as they reached the door to their building. "I really enjoyed it." "Me too," Emma replied with a smile. "We should do it again sometime." Liam nodded. "Definitely." As he walked back to his apartment, he realized that no matter what happened, this feeling, this sense of connection, was something he wasn't willing to let go of. And maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something real. It had been a few weeks since Liam and Emma's dinner, and things had started to feel different. What began as a casual conversation between neighbors had slowly transformed into something more. Liam found himself looking forward to seeing her every time he came home. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, a sense of connection that wasn't based on business, status, or wealth. It was genuine, and it felt right. Emma, for her part, seemed just as drawn to him as he was to her. Every time they spent time together, whether it was a simple coffee at her apartment or a walk through the city, the bond between them grew stronger. Liam couldn't help but notice how easy it was to talk to her. Her laughter, her insights into the world of art, and the way she listened to him without judgment. It all made him feel like he was finally being seen for who he truly was, not just the man behind a successful business. One afternoon, as Liam walked back to his apartment after a long day, he noticed something unusual. Emma's door was slightly ajar, and the soft hum of music drifted out into the hallway. He paused for a moment, unsure of what to do. He had been to her place several times before, but this time, something felt different. Maybe it was the way the door was open, or the warmth of the music filling the space, but it tugged at him. He knocked gently, and after a moment, Emma opened the door, a surprised but happy expression crossing her face. "Liam," she said, stepping aside to let him in. "What's going on?" "I was just passing by. I heard the music, and I thought I'd stop by," he said, feeling a little awkward. He had never been one to act impulsively, but something about Emma made him want to step out of his comfort zone. Emma smiled, her eyes lighting up. "I'm glad you did. Come in. I'm just working on a new project. You might like it." Liam stepped inside, the familiar comfort of her apartment immediately surrounding him. The room was filled with canvases, paint tubes, and sketchbooks, evidence of her passion for art. Emma was clearly in her element. She gestured to the canvas in front of her. "I've been working on this piece for a while. It's about connection, about how people's lives intertwine in ways we don't always understand." She paused, looking at him thoughtfully. "I think you might get it." Liam walked closer, his curiosity piqued. As he looked at the painting, he saw swirling colors and shapes, all coming together in a way that felt chaotic yet beautiful. There was something deeply emotional about it, something raw. "It's amazing," he said quietly, his voice filled with genuine admiration. Emma smiled softly. "Thank you. Art has a way of letting me express what words can't." She paused for a moment, then added, "I think it's also why I've enjoyed getting to know you. You're someone who sees me for who I am, not just what I do." Liam felt his heart tighten at her words. It was the first time someone had said something like that to him. Most people in his life only saw the success, the wealth, the CEO persona. But Emma had always seen past that, and he was beginning to realize that he didn't want to go back to the way things were before he met her. He turned to her, his expression serious. "Emma, I've been thinking a lot lately. About us, and where this might be going." He took a deep breath. "I didn't expect any of this, but I can't ignore how I feel. I don't want to just be your neighbor or your friend. I want to be something more." Emma looked at him, her eyes soft and warm. "Liam, I feel the same way," she said, her voice gentle. "I've been thinking about it too. I've never felt this way about anyone before." There was a quiet pause as they both took in the weight of the moment. It felt like everything was shifting, like the world was suddenly aligning in a way that made sense. Liam wasn't sure where this would lead, but he knew one thing for certain. He was ready to see where it could go. "I think we should take this one step at a time," Emma said, her voice steady. "Let's not rush things. Let's just see where we end up." Liam nodded, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I'm good with that," he said. "One step at a time." As the evening wore on, they talked more about their hopes, their fears, and the kind of future they both dreamed of. And as Liam left her apartment later that night, a sense of peace settled over him. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't just thinking about work or success. He was thinking about the possibilities that lay ahead. With Emma, he felt like he was finally discovering what it meant to live, not just exist. Weeks had passed since that evening, and with each day, Liam found himself more entangled in the quiet, unspoken connection he shared with Emma. The initial awkwardness between them had melted away, replaced by a sense of comfort that seemed to deepen every time they were together. Whether it was walking through the park on a sunny afternoon or sharing dinner at a small, cozy restaurant, Liam realized that he was beginning to care for her more than he had ever expected. But as the days turned into weeks, a part of him started to wonder about the future. He had never been one to get involved in anything that could complicate his carefully curated life. He was a businessman, a CEO, and that's how the world saw him. Relationships, emotions, those were just distractions, right? But every time he was with Emma, it was like his world shifted. She made him see that there was more to life than just work and success. One evening, after another long day of back-to-back meetings, Liam sat in his penthouse staring out at the sprawling city below him. The apartment, once his sanctuary, now felt empty. He could almost hear Emma's laugh echoing in his mind. She had become a presence in his life that he couldn't ignore, a person who had slowly become indispensable to him. Liam took a deep breath and stood up, walking toward the door. He had to see her again. When he arrived at Emma's apartment, the familiar feeling of nervous anticipation settled in his chest. He didn't know what he expected, but he knew one thing. He needed to have a conversation with her. The kind of conversation that would take them beyond the casual dinners and easy smiles. He knocked on her door, and within moments, Emma opened it, her face lighting up when she saw him. "Liam, what's going on?" she asked, stepping aside to let him in. "I've been thinking," Liam said, his voice more serious than usual. "About us, about where this is going. I think it's time we talk about what we really want." Emma looked at him, a slight surprise in her eyes. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice gentle but curious. "I think we both know this isn't just some casual thing anymore," Liam said, his gaze steady. "I care about you, Emma, more than I thought I would, and I don't want to just let this slip away." Emma's eyes softened, and she stepped closer to him. "I care about you too, Liam," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "But I think we need to take things slow, don't you? This is all so new, and I don't want to rush anything. Let's just let it happen naturally." Liam nodded, relieved. "I'm okay with that," he said, his voice steady. "I just needed to say it out loud." They stood there for a moment, the weight of their words hanging in the air. It was as if a new understanding had settled between them. They didn't need to have all the answers right away. They didn't need to rush into anything. The connection they shared was already something special, and sometimes that was enough. As the evening went on, they talked about their dreams for the future, about the things that mattered most to them. Liam listened as Emma spoke passionately about her dreams of opening her own art gallery, and in turn, he shared his own fears and hopes for the future. It was a rare moment of vulnerability for him, but with Emma, it felt natural. Later that night, as Liam stood up to leave, Emma walked him to the door. "I'll see you soon," he said, a smile tugging at his lips. "Definitely," Emma replied, her smile matching his. As Liam walked back to his apartment, he felt a sense of peace settle over him. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, he was ready to embrace it. With Emma by his side, he knew that life had more to offer than just the business world. There was love, connection, and the possibility of something deeper than he had ever imagined. As he closed the door behind him, Liam realized that, for the first time in a long while, he was looking forward to what came next. As the days passed, Liam couldn't help but feel like everything in his life had begun to shift. The connection he had with Emma was growing stronger, and for the first time in a long time, he found himself looking forward to the future. He had never been someone who made plans for anything beyond his business, but with Emma, it was different. He started to imagine a life that wasn't just defined by meetings and deals, but by shared moments and real companionship. But as much as he wanted to be with her, Liam still struggled with something inside himself. He was a man who had built his empire alone, who had prided himself on self-reliance. Letting someone else into his life, especially in such an intimate way, was a challenge he wasn't sure he was ready to face. One Friday evening, after a particularly long day at the office, Liam found himself in front of his penthouse window again, watching the city lights flicker below. He was used to solitude, used to the quiet hum of his apartment, but tonight, the silence felt heavier than usual. He was torn between the life he had built and the one he could see with Emma. The fear of vulnerability had always held him back, but the more he spent time with her, the more that fear seemed less important. He thought back to the night they had talked about their future. He had promised Emma that they would take things slow, and he had meant it. But the truth was, he didn't want to take things slow. He wanted to move forward, to see where this could go. He grabbed his jacket and left the apartment, walking down the hallway toward Emma's place. He knew this was a step he had to take, no matter how nervous he felt. He had to be honest with her, to lay his feelings on the table and see where they went from there. When Emma opened the door, she was surprised to see him standing there, but there was a warmth in her smile that made his heart race. "Liam, what's up?" she asked, stepping aside to let him in. "I've been thinking a lot," Liam began, his voice steady but serious. "About us. And I want to be honest with you, Emma. I don't want to hold back anymore. I care about you, more than I thought I would, and I want this to be real." Emma looked at him for a moment, her expression softening as she took in his words. She had always sensed that Liam was holding back, but hearing him say it out loud made something inside her stir. She had felt the same way, but the thought of jumping into something so deep had scared her. "I care about you too, Liam," she said quietly, stepping closer to him. "But I've been scared, honestly. I've never been in a relationship like this before, where it feels like it could be so much more than what I've known." Liam reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I get it. I do. I've been scared too. But I don't want to live in fear anymore. I want to see where this can go with you." For a moment, there was silence between them, the weight of their shared vulnerability hanging in the air. Emma squeezed his hand, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I'm willing to take that chance, Liam. I don't want to let fear control what we have." Liam's heart swelled as he looked at her. This was it. The moment he had been waiting for. The moment when everything fell into place. "Then let's take that chance together," he said, his voice filled with a quiet conviction. Over the next few days, their connection only deepened. They spent more time together, talking about everything from their childhood memories to their dreams for the future. Emma's warmth and openness continued to melt away the walls Liam had built around himself, and in turn, he began to show her sides of himself he had kept hidden for years. He realized that with Emma, he didn't have to be the polished businessman everyone else saw. He could be just Liam, the man who was learning to live and love for the first time. One evening, as they sat together on Emma's couch, the soft glow of a lamp casting shadows in the room, Liam turned to her. "Emma, I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing. I want you in it," he said, his voice quiet but full of meaning. She looked at him, her eyes searching his face, and for a moment, it was as if the world had stopped spinning around them. "I want that too," she said softly, her words hanging in the air like a promise. And in that moment, Liam realized that he wasn't just building an empire anymore. He was building something far more important, a life with someone who truly mattered. He was finally ready to take the leap into the unknown, with Emma by his side. As the weeks went by, everything between Liam and Emma felt like it was falling into place. They had crossed the threshold from casual dating into something deeper, something real. They spent almost every evening together, talking, laughing, and building memories that were far from the fleeting connections Liam had known in the past. He had never imagined himself in a relationship like this, not one that was grounded in honesty, vulnerability, and the promise of something lasting. And yet, with Emma, it all seemed so natural. But just as Liam felt like he had finally found the balance he'd been searching for, his past came rushing back into his life. One evening, while he was sitting at his desk, his phone buzzed with a call he didn't expect. It was from his business partner, Jonathan, someone who had always been a steady presence in his life. Liam didn't pick up immediately. He knew the call would be about something important. Most of their calls were about deals or business updates. He stared at the screen for a moment, hesitated, and then answered. "Liam." Jonathan's voice came through the phone, steady but urgent. "We need to talk. There's a situation with the board, and it's not good." Liam's heart dropped. The board had been a source of tension for months. They had been pushing for more control, more involvement in decisions, but Liam had always been reluctant to give up the reins of his company. "What's going on?" "There's a proposal on the table that could change everything," Jonathan continued. "They want to make you take a step back, cut your stake, your involvement. They think it's time for a change in leadership." Liam could feel the weight of the words settle in. His company, the one he had built from nothing, was at risk, and it was all happening while he was beginning to build something real with Emma. It felt like his two worlds were about to collide, and he wasn't sure how to stop it. "I need time to think," Liam said, his voice tight. "I'll be there in the morning." As soon as he hung up, Liam sat back in his chair, the reality of the situation sinking in. His mind raced with thoughts of the company, the board, the future. But as he sat there, feeling the pressure build, another thought broke through. Emma, the life he was starting to build with her. It all felt like it could unravel in an instant. Liam knew he had to talk to her. He needed her perspective. She had always been the one person who seemed to understand him without expecting anything from him, without seeing him as just a CEO. She had made him realize that there was more to life than deals and status, that the relationships he formed could be real, could be meaningful. When he arrived at Emma's apartment later that evening, he found her sitting on the couch, a cup of tea in her hand, looking as calm and serene as always. The moment she saw him, though, she could tell something was wrong. "Liam, what's going on?" she asked, setting her cup down. Liam walked over to her and sat down beside her. He ran a hand through his hair, unsure of how to explain. "It's the company," he said, his voice low. "There's a situation with the board. They want to take away my control, my involvement. It's all happening so fast, and I don't know what to do." Emma didn't say anything for a moment. She simply looked at him, her eyes calm and understanding. "It sounds like you're being pulled in two different directions," she said gently. Liam nodded, grateful for her insight. "I feel like I've worked my entire life for this, and now, it's all slipping away. And then there's you, what we're building together. I don't want that to fall apart either." Emma reached out and took his hand. "Liam, you don't have to figure everything out alone," she said softly. "You have a choice. You can decide what's most important to you. The company, the board, they're part of your life, but they're not everything. You've built something amazing, but don't lose yourself in it. And don't lose the connection you've started with me." Her words were like a lifeline to Liam. It felt like the weight of the world had been lifted off his shoulders. For the first time in a long time, he realized that he didn't have to sacrifice one part of his life for another. He could fight for his company, yes, but he could also fight for what mattered: Emma, their future, and the life they were building together. "Thank you," he said quietly, squeezing her hand. "I needed to hear that." Emma smiled, her warmth radiating through him. "I'm here, Liam. Whatever happens next, we'll figure it out together." And with that, for the first time in what felt like ages, Liam felt like he wasn't alone. He had someone by his side, someone who truly cared about him, not for his wealth or status, but for the person he was becoming. And that realization, more than anything, gave him the strength to face whatever was coming next. The following days were filled with uncertainty and decisions that weighed heavily on Liam. The meeting with the board was fast approaching, and every part of him was torn between what he had built and what he was starting to build with Emma. As much as he wanted to bury himself in the familiar world of his company, he couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was pivotal, not just for his business, but for his personal life as well. He had spent so long being defined by his career, but now, with Emma in his life, he realized that there was so much more to consider. He found himself sitting at his desk late one night, staring at his laptop, but not really seeing it. The thoughts were swirling in his mind. The board wanted control. They wanted to change the direction of the company, and they didn't care about the personal sacrifices he had made to get to where he was. But more than that, they didn't care about the future. They only cared about the present. And in that moment, Liam realized something he had been avoiding. He didn't want to be that man anymore. The man who lived only for success, for achievement, for the next deal. His phone buzzed on the desk, and he glanced at it, hoping for a distraction. It was a message from Emma. Asterisk, "Are you free tonight? I made dinner. Thought we could relax for a bit." Asterisk, the simplicity of her message was like a breath of fresh air. It was exactly what he needed, a reminder that life didn't always have to be about decisions and pressure. Sometimes, it was about the small, quiet moments with someone who understood you. He quickly typed back, asterisk, "I'd love that. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Asterisk, when Liam arrived at Emma's apartment, he was greeted with the familiar warmth of her smile and the inviting scent of dinner filling the room. The sight of her standing there, carefree and radiant, made all the tension in his chest ease a little. "Hi," he said softly, stepping inside. "This smells amazing." "Thank you," Emma replied, giving him a quick hug before leading him to the table. "I thought we could use a quiet evening, just the two of us." As they sat down to eat, the conversation flowed effortlessly. They talked about their days, their dreams, and the things they had yet to experience. Emma shared her plans for her art gallery, and Liam told her about the challenges at work, though he left out the full weight of the upcoming board meeting. He didn't want to burden her with that just yet. Instead, he focused on being present, on enjoying the moment with her. After dinner, they sat on the couch, and Emma played a soft tune on her guitar, something she had been working on for months. The sound was soothing, and as she sang, Liam closed his eyes for a moment, letting the music wash over him. It felt like the world outside didn't matter. In that moment, all that mattered was the person beside him. "I've been thinking," Liam said after a while, his voice quiet but certain, "about everything. The company, the board, this decision I have to make. And you." Emma stopped playing, looking at him with gentle concern. What about me? Liam took a deep breath. I don't want to lose what we have. I know this might sound crazy, but I think I've spent so much of my life chasing the wrong things. I've put my career above everything else. And I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to let this, what we're building, slip away because of my past decisions. Emma reached for his hand, her touch grounding him. Liam, you don't have to choose between your career and what we have, she said softly. You're not alone in this. You've got me, and I believe in you, no matter what happens. Liam looked at her, his heart full. He had spent so long thinking he had to face everything on his own, but now he realized that he didn't. He had someone who was willing to stand by him, who believed in him for who he was, not just for what he had accomplished. Thank you, Liam said quietly, squeezing her hand. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm ready to face it, whatever it is, with you. Emma smiled, her eyes shining with affection. We'll figure it out together. That's all that matters. As the evening drew to a close, Liam felt lighter than he had in weeks. He didn't know what was going to happen with the company, but one thing was certain. He wasn't going to let fear or his past define his future. He was ready to make the changes he needed, not just for his career, but for the life he wanted. With Emma. And for the first time in a long time, Liam felt truly free. The next few days were filled with difficult decisions for Liam. He had faced countless obstacles throughout his career, but this felt different. For the first time, he was balancing something more than just his ambitions. He was balancing his future with Emma and the life he was beginning to build outside of the business world. The board meeting loomed ahead, but the closer it got, the more Liam realized that the outcome, whether it was good or bad, no longer held the same weight it once did. The morning of the meeting arrived, and Liam walked into the conference room with a sense of clarity he hadn't felt in a long time. He had prepared for this moment, but this time, his heart wasn't fully invested in the outcome. His mind, yes, but his heart, it was somewhere else, beside Emma, in the life they had begun to imagine together. The board members sat around the large table, their faces serious, each one waiting for Liam to speak. They had always seen him as the leader, the man who had built the company, the one who held the power. But this time, Liam felt something different. He wasn't just there to make decisions for them. He was there for himself. I've been thinking a lot about the direction this company is going, Liam began, his voice steady, but with a hint of resolve. And I've made a decision. I've been giving so much of myself to this company, to the idea of success, that I've neglected other parts of my life, parts that matter. I'm not willing to sacrifice those parts anymore. The room fell silent as the board members exchanged uncertain glances. Liam could feel the weight of their judgment, but he didn't back down. I understand that this is a business, and I know what's at stake. But I'm not the same person I was when I started this journey. I want to lead, yes, but I want to do it in a way that doesn't cost me everything I've come to value. And that means finding balance. He paused, letting his words sink in. The decision was clear. I'm stepping back from some of my responsibilities, Liam continued, his voice more confident now. But I'm not leaving the company. I'll still be involved, but on my terms. I've worked hard to build this, and I want to see it thrive, but I also want to be present in the life I'm creating outside of it. That's non-negotiable. The room was still, the tension thick in the air. Then, one of the senior board members, a man named Richard, spoke up. You're making a risky move, Liam, Richard said, his voice skeptical. This could affect everything we've worked for. Liam met his gaze, unflinching. I understand the risks, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. I've made plenty of decisions based on fear and control. Now, I'm making one based on what I believe in. What's worth fighting for? The silence that followed was heavy, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was as if the room was waiting for someone to speak up, to validate his decision. And then, one by one, the others nodded, their faces softening. They might not have fully understood it, but they respected it. After the meeting, Liam walked out of the building with a feeling of weightlessness. It wasn't that he had won the battle. It was that he had chosen the life he wanted, the one that mattered. Later that evening, he found himself back at Emma's apartment. He didn't have all the answers, but he knew he had taken the first step in a new direction. When Emma opened the door and saw the look on his face, she knew right away. So what happened? She asked, her voice warm with concern. Liam stepped inside, taking her hands in his. I made my decision, he said quietly, his eyes meeting hers. I'm going to make this work. I'm not letting go of what we have. Emma smiled softly, her heart swelling with pride. I'm so proud of you, she said, squeezing his hands. I knew you'd make the right choice. Liam leaned down and kissed her forehead, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. Thank you for being there, for believing in me. I couldn't have done it without you. The rest of the evening was spent in quiet contentment. The weight of the world lifted from Liam's shoulders. He had made the choice to pursue what truly mattered, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was finally living. As they sat together, side by side, Liam realized that life wasn't just about success. It wasn't just about building an empire. It was about the people you cared about, the connections you made, and the love you shared. And with Emma by his side, he knew that whatever came next, they would face it together.